Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're exploring the seriously futuristic concept of the network state. If you follow the space, you know this is the blueprint tech billionaires and digital pioneers are actively trying to use right now to build decentralized societies. But as we dig into the source material today, we're going to uncover a history that totally upends where we think these ideas actually came from.
Okay, let's start with how tech investor Balaji Srinivasan defines a modern network state. It sounds incredibly high-tech, right? I mean, we're talking about cloud-first societies, blockchain integration, and crowd-funded territories globally distributed around the world. But this highly technical concept has an absolutely wild plot twist that I guarantee you wouldn't expect.
Because get this, the network state wasn't actually pioneered in Silicon Valley, and it wasn't born on some obscure cryptocurrency forum. In a crazy twist of fate, it was accidentally pioneered 60 years ago on the sandy, windswept shores of Scotland by a spiritual community using nothing but a caravan and their own incredibly deep convictions. Section 1. Genesis in a Caravan, the Accidental State.
So our story begins not with a massive seed round of venture capital, but at the Cluny Hill Hotel in Scotland. Back in the late 1950s, three individuals, Peter Caddy, Eileen Caddy, and Dorothy McLean, managed this hotel using highly unorthodox spiritual laws. And amazingly, it worked. They actually took the hotel from a 3-star to a 4-star rating. But, as you might guess, their unconventional style ultimately led to a massive clash with the owners. After being abruptly fired with literally 4 hours' notice in November 1962, they had absolutely nowhere to go. So they moved their family of 6 into a tiny caravan parked at the nearby Findhorn Bay Caravan Park. Living on this windswept wasteland of sand and gravel, they had to survive somehow, right? So they started an organic garden. Through their unique spiritual practices, they managed to grow these legendary 40-pound cabbages in pure sandy soil. Now, looking at this through the lens of a network state, we can actually view these massive vegetables as their first physical proof of legitimacy to the highly skeptical outside world. It proved that their internal alternative systems actually produce tangible, real-world results.
Section 2. The Three Philosophical Pillars, a Social Smart Contract.
Naturally, as news of their miraculous garden spread, more and more people flocked to the caravan park. But that brings up a huge problem. How do you govern a growing population without relying on the external laws of a traditional nation-state? Well, they answered that by forming a foundational philosophy based on 3 main pillars. Eileen Caddy practiced what she called inner listening, basically tuning into a still small voice within for daily guidance. Dorothy McLean focused on co-creation with nature, which she described as communicating with the intelligences, or divas, of the plant kingdom. And Peter Caddy anchored all of this with love and action, where he treated physical labor and structure as a form of active meditation. Together, these 3 practices essentially acted as an immutable social smart contract for their increasingly eclectic population. It dictated exactly how they behaved, how they resolved conflicts, and how they built their society from the ground up.
Now, there is a fascinating and really stark contrast here between Findhorn sovereignty and modern network state sovereignty. Findhorn relied on spiritual inner listening as their ultimate authority, whereas today's crypto builders rely entirely on code is law and decentralized blockchains. Yet, ideologically, they are doing the exact same thing. They are both explicitly rejecting traditional centralized state authority in favor of a brand new community-aligned consensus.
Section 3. Echo, the sovereign currency.
But you know, philosophy only takes a society so far. To function autonomously like a true network state, a community absolutely needs monetary sovereignty. And decades before the ERC 3643 token standard for regulated security exchanges was even a glint in a developer's eye, Findhorn achieved this by launching their own local currency in 2001 called the ECO. While a modern network state uses a decentralized blockchain ledger to issue digital tokens for global autonomy, Findhorn used a community social enterprise called Ecotopia to issue paper notes and digital credits. The objective here was absolutely brilliant. By using their own currency, they bypassed paying fees and interest to commercial banks, keeping the wealth circulating entirely within their own local Scottish ecosystem.
And here is the crucial takeaway. This isn't just some fringe hippie commune experiment. The eco-currency currently drives an annual transaction value of over £1 million. That is a highly successful, localized economic engine operating completely parallel to the mainstream fiat system. It's proof of concept on a massive scale.
Section 4. SCIO and the Network Union.
Now, as a parallel society scales, it eventually hits a critical threshold. It has to create a legally protected membrane to safely interact with traditional nation-states without being crushed. For Findhorn, this legal membrane had to evolve over time. They originally operated as a charitable trust starting in 1972. But there's a catch. Under a traditional trust, the trustees themselves held personal financial liability for the activities of the whole community. In an increasingly complex world, that became a huge, unacceptable risk. So they systematically transitioned their institutional tech stack to a much more modern legal structure. They became a CIO, which stands for a Scottish Charitable Incorporated Organization. By adopting this structure, the community established a formal, completely independent legal identity, and this was a massive upgrade for them. It meant the organization itself could directly own land and enter into contracts without putting individual community members at personal financial risk. Essentially, it gave them the limited liability armor of a modern corporation while still retaining the heart and tax benefits of a charity.
And we saw just how resilient this structure was recently. Following devastating fires that destroyed key buildings in 2021 and financial hardships that forced their educational programs to close, they could have easily folded. But they didn't collapse. Actually, scratch that. They didn't just survive, they rallied. Relying on their strong decentralized network, 4 community members formed a community benefit society. Through a massive grassroots movement, they raised over £415,000 from their global network to buy back their land and secure full democratic ownership. It was literally a perfect, real-world demonstration of collective crowdfunding being used to secure physical territory.
Section 5. The Archipelago Future.
So, taking a step back, what does this 60-year experiment actually tell us about where we're heading today? Well, the Findhorn Settlement isn't just an isolated blip. It builds on a deep, continuous historical arc of alternative sovereignty. Think about it. In the 17th and 18th centuries, the Jacobites, in that exact same region, demanded divine right sovereignty, completely rejecting the authority of the parliamentary state. Fast forward to the 20th century, and the Findhorn community built a society based on spiritual sovereignty, prioritizing inner listening over secular norms. And today, right now in the 21st century, network states are seeking technological sovereignty, using cryptography to exit fiat monetary systems. The mechanism changes, right? From bloodlines to spirituality to software. But that fundamental human impulse to build a parallel, highly aligned society, that remains exactly the same.
As we wrap up this explainer, we really have to ask ourselves a profound question based on all this source material. With traditional nation-states facing totally unprecedented pressure right now, is the archipelago model of distributed, high-alignment communities the true future of human organization? Could it be that the ultimate blueprint for our highly advanced digital future was actually mapped out 60 years ago by 3 unemployed adults listening to the silence in a Scottish caravan? It completely changes how we think about what makes a state, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep questioning the maps you've been given.